Well, thank you so much. We're going to wait about a couple of minutes before we start the webinar. I appreciate you coming in. Just a little housekeeping. We have the chat and the Q&A function available, so feel free to chat amongst yourselves. If you have questions during the webinar, just put it on the Q&A button on the bottom. It says Q&A. It has a couple of has a couple of caption marks. So that's where you put your questions. And I hope you're having a good day so far. So I'm Clarence. So anyone would like to say a quick hi?
Hi, I'm Mia from Story.
Okay, so we'll just want to say a quick hi. We'll start the formal webinar in a couple more minutes.
Okay, great.
Where you're from, feel free to mention in the chat.
Perfect. And before we start, I want to say thank you, Clarence, for inviting me to join this homebuyer seminar. I'm really glad to be working with you to help homebuyers.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to learn what we, in terms of the mortgages. And for the folks out there who are attending this webinar, we are going to be recording this. So you can always refer back to it once you get the link after this webinar is over.
Perfect.
Hope you guys are staying safe during this time.
There are so many changes we need to talk about, right? Especially during shelter in place.
Yeah, you have the whole rules now in terms of how we show property. It has changed things quite a bit for us.
Yeah. So people here today, they are gonna learn a lot, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Problems with the speaker.
Okay.
All right.
Should we start at 4:35?
Yeah, well, it's 4:35.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, well, it's 4:35. I know that you're taking a time out of your busy schedule to get a chance to learn a little about the home buying process right now. By the way, I'm Clarence Medgelos. I'm an agent with Compass. Sonia, you are?
Yeah, I'm Sonia. I'm with the Loan Story. I'm the mortgage planner, and it's really an honor to be here today to share this experience with you.
Okay, and the reason why we're doing this webinar, because a lot has happened with the home buying process here in Silicon Valley. Part of it is with the COVID-19, the shelter-in-place order that we're technically still in place with the loosening restrictions. Hopefully they get loosener as we progress in the next couple of weeks. But because of the such a situation where we are right now, the market, in terms of the market dynamics, how we're showing property, mortgages, has changed, I say, pretty drastically since this all started. So let me turn on my slides. Let me share it with you. And for everybody who's attending the webinar, they will receive copies of the slides also. Okay.
Perfect.
So there's a little bit of information about myself. I've been in the business since 2007. And this is a little bit about how our production level in terms of companies. We're actually the #1 real estate company here in Santa Clara County. And also we have offices around the country. So we're a national company. And Sonia, a little bit about yourself.
Yes, I have been in the mortgage industry since 2001. I started out as a loan processor, so that really helps me to navigate necessary documents and all the requirement that lender needs from the borrowers. So that can help me to giving you a precise decision whether how much you can qualify and what you need to prepare for. And I'm also volunteering with California Association of Mortgage Professionals to lobby for the homeowners and also mortgage professionals. Thank you.
All right. And one thing we want to mention is that this is a very modern home buying process that we're going through right now. A lot has changed, as I mentioned earlier, with the home buying process for the last couple of years, and it's kind of culminating with what's happening now in terms with the shelter in place. So let's talk about the beginning of the home buying process. You are going to have to get ready. You're getting prepared to get ready. Basically, this is the planning stage. And there's 3 elements I consider very important. One is understanding the market, getting yourself pre-approved with the lender. And so he's going to cover over what the pre-approval process is. And also talking with a real estate professional. What's involved with talking with a real estate professional. So let's start off with what's happening with the real estate market. Let's start off with the long-term history of the Bay Area real estate market. And I think it will give you a good context how we're heading up into the next couple of months or to the end of this year. So in terms of appreciation, this is probably the biggest thing people think about with real estate, that the biggest fear is buying a house and realizing it made a decline in value. If you look at the trend since January of 1990, that's when we had kind of flatlined around that time, and around July, August, April of 95, the home values have gone up pretty consistently with occasional seasonal factors, corrections, and peaking at around the 07 market collapse. But if you look at from that point on, it values down a bit with a crash in 2008, and every single year for the most part has gone consistently up. If you look real estate as a long-term value proposition, it kind of holds their value here in the Bay Area. And in terms of the 10 Bay Area counties, for the most part, if you look here, almost every single county has an upward direction since 1990. Now, one of these affects values in this area is the lack of supply. Here is the supply of homes for sale since 2005. It has consistently almost gone down every single year. There'll be moments where it has peaked, but immediately it has a downward trajectory since 2005. And that really affects in terms of what's available for buyers. As we know with real estate and a lot of things out there, it's a supply versus buyer demand that really kind of determines where home values are. And also what it contributes to the lack of inventory, we're actually we're actually holding homes a lot longer. In 2007, we were averaging about 4 years owning homes. Now, nationally, we're looking at 8 years. And right here in the San Francisco metro area, we're looking about 10 years that the average homeowner has been holding the property for that long before considering buying another house. And that really kind of has been making it a little bit more difficult for buyers to going out there. But what's available right now, I think the quality is a lot better compared to was in 2007 or 2008, when a lot of them were a lot of short sales, homes weren't updated, people are having distressed sales in terms of selling their homes. Another factor in terms of demand is looking at the buyer side is that historically, since the 2008, employment has been going up here pretty drastically almost every single year. And the reason why 2008 2009 was pretty remarkable. That's roughly the time when the smartphones came out. So the new set of industries here in the Silicon Valley emerge in the Bay Area. So that's see the rapid gain of employment here in the Bay Area pretty drastically, and the type of jobs that haven't really been too affected here in the Bay Area are a lot of the high tech jobs, medical, education. A lot of those sectors are seeing employment being relatively pretty stable. And there's also, in terms of employment compared to the national levels, our employment rate is actually lower. Unemployment rate is actually lower compared to national numbers, and that actually contributes in terms of the buyer demand in this area. So buyers are a lot more confident in their job situations going forward in terms of looking to buy a home. Now, real estate does have a seasonality factor. And most of the gains that you see in a year usually happens during the springtime, first and second quarter. Now with COVID-19, you're probably going to see a lot of that shift moving towards the summer and the fall. And this here in terms of amount of inventory that's coming on the market. But I want to highlight talk about what's happening since March 17th. Since before March 17th, that's when the shelter-in-place order came into effect, and inventory levels going back to our normal, usual, cycle in terms of coming on the market more so in the fall, during the springtime, I mean. But once the shelter-in-place came into effect, there was a drop of new inventory coming on the market, and it usually took a couple of weeks. One is that the county actually changed their shelter-in-place rules, actually made real estate a essential business. And now you're seeing more people coming out taking a look at homes around the end of March. And at the end of April, beginning of May, the shelter-in-place relaxed even further. Instead of showing just vacant properties, we're able to show occupied properties. So you're going to probably see more homes going to market because the sellers are more comfortable about showing their homes. In terms of active listings, of course it's dropped during the shelter in place, but it's going back up again, as you can see in the chart. In terms of appreciation, our home values are actually higher compared to spring of 2019. And the part of it is actually in this chart right here, where we actually see that, number of new listings in the last 4 weeks is actually 22.1% less compared to the same 4 weeks last year. But if you look at the amount of homes that went to contract, it's only a 2.1% decline compared to last year. So that's you see a huge decline of active inventory, but the homes that are in the contract are not as severe a drop. It's actually almost flat compared to the same time last year. Now let's talk about, so I talk a little bit about understanding the market. So Sonia, can you go forward and tell us a little bit more about the pre-approval process?
Sure. So let me see if I can share my screen. Okay, can you see?
No, yeah, I can see. Yep.
Okay. Hold on, let me. Okay, so I want to talk about the pre-approval process. So this is actually when the time that I will have to collect a couple of documents from the borrowers so that I can help you to determine your buying power. So to know how much you can qualify, of course, income is the most important one. For salary borrowers, usually we need to look at 1 month's pay stub. So that means if you are paid bi-weekly or semi-monthly, we need 2 pay stubs. If you are paid weekly, we need 4 pay stubs. We need total 30 days of pay stub to calculate and average your income. For self-employed borrowers and for salary borrowers, we always look at 2 years tax returns. There are exceptions where we may only need 1, but in general, we need 2 years tax return. For self-employed people, tax returns are the documents where lenders can look at your income. So this is critical here. For salary borrowers, we will need W-2 for 2 years. And for here, I want to mention about self-employed people. So when you report income, of course, you will write off expenses. So we will go into details when we maybe meet face-to-face, so I can look at your tax return and let you know. Sometimes the expenses you write off will affect your ability to qualify. So we can go into details later. And for back to salary bars, if you have base income and you have bonus and RSU, you can use to help you to qualify for more if you are looking to buy higher purchase price. But just keep in mind, because I have these questions every so often, if you do have bonus income, you need 2 years history for lenders to calculate that bonus. So for example, if are you working in this company A for just a year, even so you receive bonus, most lenders may not use that bonus to qualify. So that's just something to keep in mind. The next thing is credit. So when lender pull your credit report, they are not only just looking at your credit score, they also want to look at your liabilities so that they know your monthly obligations. And that's the only way they can calculate your debt ratio. So credit report here is important. And for most first-time home buyers out there, I just want to let you know, if you haven't purchased a home before, of course, you generally speaking, you need 3 trade lines. So for example, you need to have 3 credit cards, maybe 1 car loan, 2 credit cards. You generally want to have 3 so that you build a good portfolio for lender to look at. And that will help you to shop for lenders, because some lenders require 3 trade lines. So that's something to know. And also, lender look at 3 credit scores. So we have credit score from Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. So when lender pull credit report, they will pull 3 scores, and lender use a middle score to qualify. So this score will help you to determine what kind of interest rate you will get, and also what kind of program you can get into. So that's mainly the credit report. And recently, I found out many people freeze their credit. So if you do that, that's actually good, because you are helping yourself to avoid credit fraud, identity fraud. Just make sure that if you are going through pre-approval process, unfreeze your credit so that we can pull the credit and know and help you to qualify. And the last thing is bank statement. We want to look at your bank statements to most importantly verify you have the ability to pay the down payment. And even after down payment, some borrowers may not sort of besides down payment, when you apply for a mortgage and buy a house, there are also third-party closing costs you need to consider. For example, appraisal fees, title and escrow fees, notary fees, something like that. So when we look at your bank statement, we will need to look at if you have enough assets to pay to the down payment, and also enough assets to pay the closing costs. And of course, there are programs that where lender offer you credit to cover the closing costs, but that's a separate issue. But generally speaking, you need to have enough down payment, enough assets for the closing costs, and after this, you need to have enough reserve for the rainy days. So that's mainly the documents for the pre-approval. And I want to talk about quickly that what you should expect during loan process. So if you are get into the house, once you are waiting for the loan to be approved, generally speaking, I put a don't quit your job here. And I know it is obvious, but during my career, I do have seen a couple people got the loan submitted and then quit their job. So please don't do that. Your income is important. And try not to change job, because every time you change job, we need to collect a new pay stub, and that may delay your loan applying process. And while you are waiting for the loan to be approved, don't charge large amount on your credit card because lender may at any time pull a new credit report. If you open a new loan, for example, you buy a new car, during this process, this may affect your ability to qualify. Next is don't make any non-income based deposit. Another reason lender look at your bank statement is because they have to follow FBI anti-money laundering policy. They need to look at your deposit. So if you have any deposit other than income, lender will ask you to explain if it's large, like similar to your income deposit. And if you have any cash deposit that you cannot explain, most lenders will not recognize that cash as your own. So just make sure that we will go over this, especially what kind of deposit in your bank statement when we apply for the loan. And lastly, the same as goes back to FBI anti-money laundering policy. Lender need to verify where the money goes. So if you move money around, just make sure you have the record so we can explain to lender where the money comes and goes so that we can have a smooth transaction. So that's pretty much a main point for the loan process. And now back to you, Clarence. You are mute.
Sorry about that. Thank you so much. So as I mentioned, one thing is get pre-approved. But also another thing you should be thinking about is talking to a real estate professional. It's never too early to set that up. I think it's the earlier the better, so you could be able to at least fill in the holes from the information you've been gathering out there, and also figure out your next steps. During that time, you actually sit down with an agent. Actually, they're interviewing you to see if they actually are a good fit for what the type of people they would like to help. In terms of personality, in terms of readiness. So, and during the meeting, we'll talk about what your wants and needs, what areas you're interested in, types of floor plans that are important. We'll also talk about what's important lifestyle-wise, if this is something you're planning to move into, or if this is an investment property that you're thinking about. We talk about the financial aspects in terms of owning a real estate property. So that's the planning. And also once the meeting is complete, once we do the meeting, we also talk about setting up some email alerts so you start getting listings that are available. Things when you sit down with an agent, you should be asking them, how they understand the market, to how they're going to find the homes that you're going to be interested in. As an agent of Compass, we actually have 4 ways actually we like to try to find homes that are available to our clients. One is the most obvious. We do have access to the MLS, and part of the alert is you'll be getting that in terms of homes that are available based upon the criteria that we talked about. 2 is at Compass, and we actually have a coming soon program. So that's a lot of our listings that before it hits the MLS, we post it on our website, and you'll be getting alerts at that too if you work with a Compass agent. 3 is that we actually have a private exclusive program. So some of our listings are only marketed between agents in the office, in the company. So it's a way for some of these sellers are very private. Also a way for them to test market the home before it actually hits the coming soon or the MLS. And the last thing we do also is we network with other agents in the community that we worked with in the past, and we try to see if there's anything that's available out there that could fit your requirements that's not available on the MLS or coming soon. So that's a way in terms of trying to get you ahead in terms of finding homes that are not available on the market right now. So let's talk about seeing a home in person, seeing a home. So let me share my slides again. Okay, so let's talk about the searching in properties. I mentioned a little bit about in terms of a concept of seeing the email alerts, notifying you when homes are hitting the market. But let's see you find some homes that you want to take a look at. So first thing that we're advising all our clients is view homes virtually. So that means that a lot of the listing agents and sellers are setting up virtual tours. virtual open houses. So there's a way to be able to take a look at the home without being in there. So we're trying to provide some level of safety. But at a certain point, you'll be seeing a home that you're interested, that you want to see in person. So we actually, as an industry, have developed some rules in terms of seeing properties in person. One, in-person showings have to be done by appointment only. So right now, open houses are non-existent and probably won't be around for a while. And in terms of showings, we can have no more than 2 people in the same house to see a property at a time. So you could rotate people in, 2 at a time, but it only can be 2 people at a time seeing a property. Buyers may have to provide pre-approval letters, proof of funds to the seller. So the part of the thinking of this, sellers want to make sure, especially if it's owner occupied, that the people who are coming in are qualified to buy. You don't want to have folks who are non-qualified taking a look at their home during this shelter-in-place situation that we're living in right now. And also buyers and buyers agents, and anybody who's actually having entry to the property has to sign a COVID property entry advisory and declaration. We in the industry like to call it the PED. It basically tells the consumer that this is the rules that we're abiding by, the procedures, and also you're declaring that you have not had COVID or been in contact with somebody with COVID before seeing this property. And now, in terms of owner occupied property, we're allowed to show that, but the occupants can't be at the property at the time. So you're probably going to see this sign up quite a bit of with the listings out there. This actually is required for the industry to do this. So basically outlines the rules that we actually have to provide. So one, where everybody coming to the property has to have a face mask. There'll be washing stations many times or hand sanitizers. The clients I work with, I always bring a hand sanitizer with me so they'll be able to sanitize their hands. We'll try to stay 6 feet apart from each other, and we're encouraging everybody, do not touch anything in the property, okay? Even before you go into the property, a good agent will open up at least a window or door, try and get some air circulation in the building before you enter the property. And anything that's disposable, like gloves, shoe coverings, face masks, they should be disposed of. So now, when you find that property that you're interested, now we start making the offer. So one thing we do is get disclosures from the sellers and begin reviewing. And a lot of times the sellers provide some general questionnaires about what they know about the property. They also provide, a lot of the sellers now in this area provide inspections for the property. And also, they'll provide some reports in terms of a lot of if they bought it recently, a lot of the sellers will provide some historic documents for the property. Now, once you feel comfortable with the disclosures, now we have to figure out a price and other terms for the offer. So what I do in terms with try to help my clients figure out what they should be making an offer at is that I always contact the listing agent, try to gauge the level of competition that you'll be facing right now. So if it's a multiple offer situation, you want to know how many potential, roughly a rough idea of how many potential offers may be coming in. Also, you will figure out what's the market trend in the area and comps with recent sold. In terms of pricing, I think that where you make an offer and there's no hard and fast rule in terms of mathematical formulas. You're looking at the grand scheme of things, how much you really want the house, who's your potential competition, and is there a chance to negotiate. So those 3 factors are really going to be affected where you'll be making an offer at. Now we submit an offer. So once you figure out the terms, price, we submit an offer. Usually with my clients, we have a cover letter talking about a little bit who you are, your qualifications, and why you're interested in the property. Try and make position you at the most positive light in terms of to the seller. We try to convince the seller that you are the best candidate to work with, right? Based upon your price and terms and your qualifications. We also submit your offer, proof of funds. So the seller needs to know where the money is coming from in order for your down payment and your closing costs. In addition, we also provide a pre-approval letter showing that you're qualified to get a loan if you are getting a loan for the property. And also seller disclosures. So you want to make sure you want to let the seller know that you have read everything that's provided, so you're confident, you're fine with going into making an offer in that situation. So, and in terms of making offers, there's always I've noticed that there's three things that sellers will be doing. One, they could reject your offer outright. Two, they can't accept your offer outright. Or three, they can negotiate. I'm seeing more and more these days, sellers are more inclined to accepting the best offer at the spot. So we just don't know how the seller's always reserving the right to accept the highest and best offer or negotiate, but you have to assume that the seller may not want to negotiate. Now, once your offer is accepted, congratulations, now we go through the escrow process. So we'll deposit your initial deposit, and generally that's in our market is about 3% of the purchase price, and we begin the loan process. So you'd like to elaborate more about the loan process during the stage? You're mute. So you're mute.
Okay, now it's my turn to mute myself, huh? Okay, so let's look at, actually during the loan process, Clarence, are you gonna talk about contingency?
Yeah, in terms of contingency, so in terms of contingencies, one of the things that you should be aware about when you make an offer is that ideally we would like to put place in certain things that protects you as a consumer. There's three contingencies that we normally have on the purchase contract. One is the general property inspection contingency, where you're investigating what we know about the property, and some of this won't be things we're also checking insurability in depth. We're checking permits, and we're doing our own physical inspection of the property. Other one's loan contingency. Basically, we're confirming that you actually can qualify for the loan. And appraisal contingency is basically we want the appraisal to either be higher or at least the sales price that we agreed upon with the seller.
Right. So basically, contingency is a way for the buyer to get rid of the contract if anything happened. So many people ask me, or even the realtor asks me, do we put contingency on the contract? I really think this is a question goes to the buyer. So if I pre-approve you, that means I'm confident that your loan will get qualified. So if you want to be a competitive buyer, then you don't have to put loan contingency there, because if I pre-approve for you, that means I know you will get a loan. However, for appraisal contingency, it really depends. So right now, it's I think it's a weird market, so I don't know where the value is, if that's in line with the purchase price, like Clarence said. So if you are only put 3% down, for example, the value is very important to you. And if appraisal is required, and if the appraisal value comes back lower than the purchase price, then it may affect your ability to get the loan for a 3% down only. So for appraisal contingency, is really case by case. I usually will discuss with Clarence to get his feeling how the value will come up on the appraisal, and then we can decide if we need to put appraisal contingency. So this is actually a really good question. When you are in contract, talk to the realtor, talk to Clarence to see if you want to put contingency and what kind of contingency it is. And earlier, I didn't mention about down payment, so I want to mention this here. So many people ask, do you need to have 20% down payment to buy a house? Most people have this concept that we need to wait for 20% down payment to buy. But in fact, you don't need to. But if you put less than 20% down payment, it may limit your purchase power. So I put it down here. So the first one is 3% down payment. If you only have 3% down payment, there are programs that you can go for it, but the maximum loan amount you can get will be $510,400. So if you do the math, only putting 3% down, your maximum purchase price will be $526,186. Now move on to 5% down payment. If you can put together 5% down payment, the maximum loan amount you can qualify will be 765, 600. Adding 5% down payment, that's a purchase price you can get, which is around 800 or 5,000. And many people talking about FHA program. So FHA program has been around for a long time. So they just need minimum 3.5% down payment. So the loan amount limit is still the same as 765, 600. And you can notice because you are putting only 3.5% down, your purchase price, of course, is lower than when you can put 5% down at the above. So there are many different programs we can look at. I just want to let you know that you don't have to wait for 20% down. If this purchase price, then talk to me, talk to Clarence, so we can start working on your pre-approval process and help you to get into contract. And now, back to you, Clarence. And you are muted too.
All right, so I caught myself. So so we mentioned about the loan process. Another thing that's going to happen also during the escrow period, and keep in mind the timelines of the things happening in escrow happens all at once. They may end at different points, but they're all happening at the same time. The loan process happening at the same time as inspections, disclosures, and other investigations. So let's talk about the inspections. So there's three. So if you're looking for a single family home, there's 3 inspections I recommend my clients to get. And keep in mind, inspections are optional, especially with sellers or providing inspections to begin with. I always feel like it's a good idea to get a second pair of eyes who's from a different company that the seller chose to be able to confirm what their inspector is showing is the same as your inspector. Especially if it's an inspection that's relatively old. I've seen some properties that their inspection is about more than 6 months old. A lot can happen in those 6 months. And I've seen inspections where what my inspector caught was not in their inspection. So, and those are things that may end up being big factors of how your transaction will be moving forward. So in terms of the 3 inspections I recommend is a general property inspection. It's kind of like a doctor's checkup. They'll check all the systems, and like a general practitioner, like your doctor, they'll probably recommend specialists. So then you may be thinking about should you get the specialist or not. 2, I always recommend this, regardless what the property inspector says, is a structural pest inspection. We call it the euphemism as a termite inspection. And the termite inspection we're looking for is anything that's affecting the structure of the building in terms of pests. And pests can be more than just the termites. We're also looking at dry rot, water damage. And from my experience when I'm looking at inspections, the dry rot and the water damage is actually more pervasive and damaging to the property than actual termites. So, and the great thing about the property inspection, termite inspection, is that they'll recommend, they'll tell you how much it'll cost. They'll recommend what they do to fix it and also the cost for it. And the last one I recommend my clients to get is a roof inspection, especially if the roof has been this between being just on the property and getting to the point where you need to replace it. That way you can figure out, they'll tell you what needs to happen in order to make it watertight. And every roof at some point will have some minor things happening to the roof because of wind, rain, trees that may affect the water tightness of the roof. So it's a good idea to get all 3. And sometimes you may want to get a foundation or a chimney inspection, depending what the property inspection says. So in terms of other things, in terms of the inspection period, sometimes we'll have required disclosures in my office, and this is a chance to be able to try and get all the necessary disclosures that sometimes the seller may have forgot, or your agent may require in order to go forward in a transaction, try to get more information out of the seller. And also you're trying to figure out insurability of the property. So if you're buying a condo or townhouse or anything that has an HOA, you'll also get some HOA docs that you review. You're looking at uh, aspects of the HOA docs of like their CC&Rs, covenants, restrictions for the property. You're looking at their budget, see if they're fully funded or have are on pace to be adequately funded. You also want to make sure that they're not heavily in debt, and or you get heads up any major assessments may happen. And what I'm looking for in the HOA, I'm looking for if there are they able to pay for the major expenses down the road? And that is like roof, physical structures of the building, something to be paying for tenting, landscaping. Are they able to pay for repaving if there's like a common road? So those are things that look in the HOA docs, trying to make sure that you're not hit with a special assessment down the road, that they're well managed and are accounted for future expenses down the road. Okay. So once you release your contingencies, done your inspections, now we go to the next phase to try to close the transaction. So the closing the transaction, we'll do a final walkthrough. It's usually about 5 days before we're expected to close the escrow, and we do a sign off. And the sign off is basically when you get the loan docs in, grantees or the seller signing off, and basically doing everything that's showing that you're finalizing the funding process, and you're signing off the deed that this property will be under your name. A day before we close escrow, where all funds need to be at a title company. And the funds we're talking about is your remainder of your down payment, your closing costs, and the loan should be coming into title roughly around that time. And the next day we close escrow and I get you the keys. So that's a pretty quick and simple process. Not mentioned here. Not mentioned in the slides is that after we close escrow, there's still a lot of things that may need to happen to help make the transition from being where you're living right now to moving into your new place. We'll work with, ideally after you close escrow, a good agent will give you some recommendations if for anything you need repairs, contractors. We'll help with scheduling with your getting bids from movers if you need it. And after you moved in, one thing I always do for my clients is to set up a yearly update in terms of what's happening around the community that will affect your value. And also we set up email alerts or Compass collections. But basically, so you can see and monitor what's sold recently in the neighborhood every month or every week. So you can be updated of possible things to affect the value of your property. Yeah. And Sonia, is there anything after the close of escrow you recommend that your buyer should be doing in terms of on the loan side, the mortgages?
So after the loan close, of course, the payment. So I usually will remind my clients when the mortgage payment is due, when the property tax is due, and also generally speaking, how to maintain the property. And I'm always available for my clients if they have any questions after we close the loan. Actually, I want to mention that we didn't talk about how long it will take to close escrow. So right now, roughly speaking, 30 days is the time when you are in contract. And then usually most buyers and sellers, they put 30 days contract to close. So 30 days is a range. And of course, if you want to be competitive and if sellers are eager to sell right away, we can offer 21 days close of escrow as well. So that's roughly 3 weeks.
Okay. So, right here.
So Clarence, I have a question for you. Actually, I know Bay Area is always competitive, and even with shelter in place, COVID-19, the home purchase price here in the Bay Area is pretty stable. Lots of buyers making offers. So when you're representing an offer, what do you think? What would you suggest buyer to expect do they put the offer just as listing price, or do they need to put a little more? And if do they need to put a little more, how much more to get an offer?
Okay, so that's a very good question. I think in this market, and with a lot of buyers, first-time home buyers out there, especially the type of buyer industry that most people work here, they do like to figure out formulas and stuff like that in order to be able to figure out how they're making their offer at. It's part of it is psychological in terms of where you feel most comfortable with in terms of your offer price. Generally speaking, I always think that if the house has gone to market within 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, your odds are you're looking at a multiple offer situation. So that means that list price offers below are going to be not what the seller is expecting at that time. So you got to start thinking about what the seller expects and who your competition is and what you feel most comfortable. And I think I mentioned earlier, we always look at the comps, recent solds in the area, market trends. I think that really the biggest factor that influence both of those factors in how you can calculate where the value would be when you make the offer is how much you want more, how much you want to beat your competition within reason. And I also keep this in mind, as a buyer, you're actually following the last buyer's decision. So wherever you are in terms of when you make an offer, you're going to be the precedents that everybody else follows. So as you know, in this market, if you set the trend, next person is going to have to top that in order to get the next house. So that's kind of the dynamic you're seeing in right now. Now, opportunities out there to go make an offer less, they're still out there. There's quite a bit of homes that are, not all of them, but there's quite a bit that have been sitting in the market for a while for a variety of different reasons. And this question, are you comfortable with that house? Because there might be a reason why it's sitting on the market for a while. One, it could be overpriced, or the condition of the property or the location of the property may not be to most people's liking, and that may influence the amount of people who are interested in making an offer on that house.
Got it.
Yeah. And by the way, for the folks who are out there, if you have any questions, this is a good time to ask your questions right now. There's a Q&A function on the bottom. Feel free to pop in your question, and Sonia and I will be able to answer it. So Sonia, credit score. How important is credit score in terms of trying to qualify for a mortgage?
Right, credit score definitely is important, but how good is good credit score? So generally speaking, 720 is a good credit score. And of course, if you want to get the best interest rate, some lenders provide better rate for a credit score over 780. And there's a tier. So between 720 to 740, this is tier for interest rate. And then if your credit score is between 740 to 780, there's a better chance to get a better rate. And of course, definitely if your credit score is over 780, you have the best opportunity to get the best rate out there. And of course, when you maintain credit score, it's really important not to, besides looking at the credit score, just make sure you maintain your payment history, and also make sure you have 3 trade lines. I think that's important. That gives you more opportunity to look for different programs you'd like to.
So Sonia, is there a difference between certain loan programs, in terms of once it hit a certain loan amount?
Yeah, so many people may hear this technical terms conforming loans. So conforming loans means loan amount between 500 10,000. That's a conforming loan, and that's right now during shelter in place. This is the best sweet spot for the best rate. So rate is really low, like 2.5 to 3%. in between. For high balance loan, you may heard of that term, or also called super conforming loan. That's loan amount between 510 and 765,000.
Okay.
And now many people heard jumbo loans. So jumbo loans are loan amount over 765,000.
Okay. So we actually have a question that popped up in the Q&A. Oh, actually, we have two of them. So one, the basic question is her husband and herself. They're wondering which one is which one is the one that the lender will pick in terms of credit score.
So if we have two borrowers, in your case, you and your husband, lender choose the lower of the two. So lender pick middle score of your score first between the two, and then lender will choose the lower middle score.
Okay. And there's 3 credit card companies that you guys use trying to figure out which credit score, right?
Yeah, so there are 3 credit bureaus, you mean, so TransUnion, Equifax, and TransUnion. So we will Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. Those are the 3 bureaus over 3 different scores. So lender use the middle score when we pull the credit report. And also, by the way, many people are worried about inquiries. They are worried about that if you pull my credit report, will my credit score dropped? And most of the time, if your credit score is good, a credit inquiry doesn't hurt your credit score. And you are allowed to pull credit within 30 days. If there are multiple inquiries, within 30 days, it's only counted as 1 inquiry, so it will not affect your credit score.
Okay. And in terms of, I advise my clients to get fully underwritten for the pre-approval. Is there a difference between not having underwriter take a look at it, or having underwriter not taking a look at it before? Because there's a confusion in some of the buyers I've worked with in the past about the pre-approval letters and having an underwriter taking a look at it before start taking a look at homes.
Oh, that's a perfect question. So when I offer the pre-approval, I actually already run through lender system to get a preliminary approval. So even so, the underwriter doesn't look at that, but that's a pretty solid approval. And the only time we need an actual underwriter to look at your file is only because when we have to get exception. For example, maybe you don't have 2 years employment history. Maybe your credit score is too low and we want to see if we can get an exception for the loan approval. Or if you have complicated assets where the assets may coming from foreign, and then or maybe your income source may not be based in US, your income may be based in different countries, and we want to use that income to qualify you. So for those special cases, we want an underwriter to look at that, because those are not things we can put into computer and have the computer to generate loan approval.
Okay, so we have another question. I think it's directed towards me. How long the home buying takes? Is this takes months from the beginning until the closing process? So let's start off. Let's break this up a bit. So in terms of getting ready, that could take a while depending on your situation and your comfort level. Part of it is trying to build a down payment for it, but there are down payment assistance programs out there. So are you familiar with some of the programs that are available for down payment assistance?
Oh, thank you. I actually forgot to mention about down payment assistance. So there are, in California, there are so many down payment assistance programs out there. So most of the down payment assistance program the county or the city provides are helping you. If we go back previous, if you are having, if you borrow a 97% loan, you can use 3% down payment assistance program from the city or from the county. So essentially, you are getting 100% loan. So yeah, there are many programs out there.
Okay, so then once we get the, let's say once you're ready and you start taking a look, that can vary a lot in terms of one, that's what's available on the market. So every week it's different in terms of homes that are for sale, because one is that some sellers are holding out for a certain time. 2, certain buyers got ahead of you and got the house before you had a chance to take a look at it. And I had, in terms of my experience, it ranges quite a bit. You're looking, if you're very aggressive, I've seen buyers first offer, first week after looking, we're in contract. I had buyers that's taking, you know, depending on their situation, almost a, 3 months to a full year because of the competitors of the market or what's not available for what they feel like is a home that they would fit in their situation. It really depends on the buyer. And Sonia, pre-approval letters last for how long?
Pre-approval letter, I usually tell my clients once I run the credit report and issue the pre-approval, it can go as long as you would like, as long as you don't make any big changes on your credit. For example, if you don't happen to have a late payment during this process while waiting for the contract to be accepted, or if you open a new car loan, something like that. As long as you don't make any changes to your credit portfolio, the pre-approval can be as good as long as needed.
Okay, so and also in terms of closing, so once you get the contract, it really depends on the lender's timeline in terms of how soon we can close a transaction. And Sonia mentioned earlier, it usually is about 30 days, depending on your situation. And a lot of times the lenders I've talked with in the past, depends on your loan program and how aggressive that lender is. Am I right about that, Sonia?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So answer that. And actually we got another question in here. If the home I want costs $1 million, how much cash I need to have for a down payment?
So I think that's a question to me. If you are looking to buy a 1 million home, I think the minimum down payment you may need will be 10%. 10% down payment, that gives you a loan amount of 900,000. So 900,000 is a jumbo loan. So jumbo loan is more strict to most lenders. And I think for jumbo loan, 10% is the minimum that you need to have.
Jumbo loans. Is it common in this part of the country, jumbo loans, in terms of your clientele?
Yeah, I think jumbo loans are created mainly for California homes. So our purchase price is generally higher. So any loan amount over 765,000, that's a jumbo loan. So typically the criteria is more strict. For example, the credit score is required for at least 680 above. And also most lenders want to have 2 years employment history, 3 trade lines in your credit. And if you have owned a home before, you shouldn't have a mortgage late history in your credit portfolio within the recent 12 months, stuff like that. And especially for jumbo loans, you need to have enough reserve. So earlier when we buy the house, lender usually just need to see if you have enough down payment and enough cash to pay some closing costs. But for jumbo loans, besides that, most lender requires 12 months reserve. That's average speaking. Some lender maybe only need 6 months reserve. And reserve means your monthly payment for mortgage, property tax, and home insurance.
Okay. And one thing, in terms of home insurance, once you're in escrow, we recommend shopping around, trying to find the best rate, because that's one of the costs that most buyers don't figure out until the very last minute. Especially if you happen to be buying a property that's in a flood zone, insurance rates from the insurance agents that we've talked to have always quoted high because the potential flood, the cost for a flood zone area. Part of the disclosures you're going to receive reviewing would be talking about if the house is in a flood zone or not. So, and also you are required to have flood insurance for your loan, for your mortgages, right?
Right. If the property is in flood zone, definitely lender will require you to have a flood insurance.
Okay. And now we're almost out of time. So Sonia, let's talk about how to get ready, because I think some people out there may not be ready to actually buy, but maybe want to take the necessary steps to get themselves ready. And by the way, if you have any further questions, both Sonia and I, we'll have our contact information with the slides. And so you're giving us something also for our attendees, right?
Right. So thank you for being here with us. And if you are here, I will send you a credit score guide. So because you are a first-time home buyer, you may want to know before you actually get into that contract, what you can do to help your credit score to be better, to get a better rate. Or if you don't have enough credit history, how to build that history quickly so that you can qualify for a loan.
And the folks who are attending here, I'll be sending also a list of our coming soon listings that we have in the market right now. Every week I'll be updating that. So there's a link every week. I'll be updating that list of our coming soon. So you get an idea what as Compass will have coming on the market fairly soon here in Silicon Valley. So let's go back to ending this. What do you recommend for buyers out there who are thinking about getting ready? And I did get a question here about down payment assistance program. You could quickly answer that, how to get ready on the mortgage side.
Okay, so I think to get ready is really easy. It go back to my first slide. So as when we talk, just provide the necessary documents, income and assets. That's the most important one. And then I can go over with you, what's your buying power. And for down payment assistance programs, it's the easiest way just to Google it. If you want to look for down payment assistance in San Jose, just Google down payment assistance in San Jose, and there will be many programs pop out. And if you are confused, you are lost, feel free to contact me and I can help you to navigate.
Okay. So on the real estate side, trying to get yourself ready. One is, I think, part of it is figure out why you want to buy a house. In terms of the timeline that you're in, I recommend folks who want to buy, if you tend to be in the area at least 5 to 10 years, or at least own the property at least for 5 to 10 years, because the market does fluctuate pretty drastically from year to year. Especially if you want to be just happen to hit one of those correction years. Two, if there's something you're moving into, figuring out, what lifestyle-wise, what's important to you. I believe that you buy area first before you end up buying the house itself. It's easier to find the right area with the right house than the other way around. It doesn't hurt to talk to especially somebody who is working the mortgage side or the real estate side about what's going on. Then in terms of information out there, I think I track in terms of, course, the average sales price in a given area. I look at really in terms of how active the buying market is and the number of homes in the market. So that way you are able to get an idea of what's happening in those areas that you're most interested in. And as part of the slides, there'll be there's a question, there's some tips and ideas on the slides you'll be getting of what some of the questions I usually ask my clients to help them get themselves ready. We do have one last question if we could fit it in, and this will be the last one. And any more questions we'll be responding via email. So the last question I have here is, can I buy a house, then rent it, or do I need to live in the property for a certain amount of time?
Okay, so when you buy a primary home and get a mortgage based on primary home, you will sign a loan document called occupancy agreement. So on that occupancy agreement, you basically tell them that you promise living for 1 year. That's a general rule of thumb that lender requires you to live in 1 year. And of course, there are different cases. So if you need to rent the house later, that's case by case, we can discuss later. But general rule of thumb, you should live in the house for 1 year to call this as a primary home.
Rate-wise, there's a big difference between rates for a primary or investment property?
So right now, of course, we know the rate for primary residence is very low. So rental property, it depends. So recently, because of shelter in place, lenders increase the rate on rental property. So it may not be as attractive for now. But before, when things is normal, rental property rate is generally a quarter to 0.5% higher than primary residence.
Okay. All right. So I want to thank everybody. So we are beyond the time limit. So I want to thank everybody for attending the webinar. As mentioned, Sonia Iyer has some thank you gifts that we'll be sending out to you, plus the slide decks, and also information on how to get a hold of us. So if you have any other question, just please feel free to reach out. Both Sarah and I are available to answer your questions. And it's always a good idea if you're at any stage to actually do a meeting, either right now for me, has to be virtual. I think same thing for you too, Sonia, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so, and we could be able to set that up fairly easily. So thank you so much. And we're hoping to be able to cross paths pretty soon.
Yes, thank you. Bye, Clarence. And thank you, everybody. Bye.